was very young, I watched The Munsters and the Addams Family, and I declare. All right. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Great to have the people here in the room, but also great to be able to celebrate with the people online as we celebrate the first Shabbat of the new year. And in a moment like this, it's probably good to frame our experience for the whole year. I mean, start out with a bit of a nigun, just to get us emotionally connected to the Sabbath. And then you're going to share with me some of the good things going on in your lives.
All right, let's do this 3 times. La da 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 da. La da 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 da. Ya da 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 da. Ya da 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 da. Ya 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 da 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 da. Ya da 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 da. Ya da 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 da. Ya da 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 da. Ya da 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 da. Nice rich breath. Ya da 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 da. Ya da 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 da. Ya da 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 da. Ya da 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 da. Ya da da da. Ya da da.
So, welcome. Come on in, folks. So, as we enter into the Sabbath, we take a few moments to just share with each other a little good and blessing. We want to start the year off on a positive note, frame it. If we were driving a golf ball, we want to square ourselves up for the big drive and onto the 18 holes. So let's start off with some good and blessing, some tohu v'racha, something that we're feeling good about as we come into 2022. I, for one, had an absolutely wonderful New Year's we had out-of-town visitors, and it was just fantastic. Even more fantastic, my eldest son has a job again, and so he's out of the house, and that's even more fantastic. So I'm feeling good heading into 2022. Who else has a good and blessing to report? As always, it doesn't have to be a big deal. It's just something you're grateful for. Let's start over here.
For the New Year's, my parents adopted a new kitten.
Ah, there's nothing like a little murder beast in the middle of the house who actually is deceptively acute and adorable. Yes, yeah, as said, it savages everything in its path. But there's joy in that. Richard?
You know, as we were discussing music, one of the things that occurred with me in the last week was that I had an ongoing back and forth email discussion about the Beatles and George Martin.
Okay.
Led me back to the YouTube, of course, like everyone.
Right.
And I got to re-experience some of the Rubber Soul, Revolver,
Sure.
Pepper, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Blah, you know.
Right.
So it was nice reliving my misspent youth.
That is nice. Have you watched the television documentary?
I have not.
Neither have I.
A friend of mine saw it.
Uh-huh.
In fact, he signed up for Disney Plus just to see it, and he was highly disappointed.
Ooh.
So for the first 4 hours were less than spectacular. The last 2 were okay.
Okay. Well, so cut straight to the last 2 hours. There you go.
So that's one opinion.
Right, I understand. What other good and blessings do people have to report? Yes, Joanne.
Well, at Avon's wedding, we had a generator installed,
Okay.
which means we'll probably never have another snow again.
Right.
And if we do, you're all invited.
Right. Very good. And I too, after the great plunge last year, bought myself a generator, which runs on 2 different fuels. Right. So I can cover it. I don't know, it's maybe propane and jet fuel. I'm not sure what my options are, but in any case, I do have one. The big trick is figuring out how to plug it into the, I mean, I can run it directly, but I want to be able to plug it into the switchboard. And I'm not quite sure how to do that without killing myself. So I'll work on that. I'll work on that. How about for you?
Samson made it extremely far into a job application process, which seems from the outside third party observer very difficult to get this far through.
Okay. Kenahora, poo, poo, poo. All right, now everything's fine again. All right, who else has something good to report? Anybody? Ah, two. Okay, let's start in the back there with Bob.
Well, I just am so glad to have Dick Lapidus joining our video team with Samson and Misty so that we can spread the love and all share in doing the last reading.
That is wonderful. Jacob has volunteered to help us as a sound engineer and to make sure that we are getting out onto the airwaves, which is fantastic. He didn't wear a coat tonight, which is less fantastic. So I want you all to put pressure on him. What's that?
He's a teenager.
He's a teenager, right? But I'm sorry, I'm not accepting excuses. And how about for you?
I have joined a group on Facebook. It's called Yiddish Word for a Day.
Oh, fantastic.
And it has been so much fun going back
Mhm.
and realizing that all the Yiddish that I learned as a child actually does make sense.
Right.
And people, and have behaviors that run along with it, and,
Mhm.
and hand gestures and all kinds of things. And so one person will say, "What's a geschäft?"
Right.
And then everybody writes what they think it is.
Mhm.
And until we settle on it, and
That sounds
somebody
wonderful.
looks it up linguistically.
Right.
But it's really fun.
Right.
Because of all the memories.
Sure, sure. Jerusalem Post has a nice little thing going on called Street Hebrew, which is learning all the Hebrew I never learned in rabbinical school. And that's kind of fun. So I can say things under my breath now and never have to worry about offending anybody. So that's great. Anybody else have any good and blessings to report? All right, well, we do have a couple of things that we know. For example, we have 2 anniversaries this past week. We want to think of Joan and Simone Armon, who are celebrating their anniversary, and also Norm and Bee Bender. We wish them both couples the best. And for birthdays, Joe Armon was this past week. It seems like he stacked up his simchas a little bit here. Lauren Greenberg, Dr. Stuart Mechnick, Samantha Gelman, Bella Kaplan, and Dr. Charles Paley all have birthdays. So we want to wish them a mazel tov on that. So with that, I think it's time for us to kindle Shabbat lights. And I'm going to ask up Dr. Rebecca Lapidus to kindle the lights of Shabbat. We are going to be in service number 2 for those who are out there. So we're going to start on page 26. Page 26 is going to be the point of orientation.
I read the English.
Yes, start with English.
Okay. A different light shines this day, a light pure and bright. Its glow is like that of an angel's. Its brightness fills my heart completely. I shall rejoice and be glad. Should I do the Hebrew?
Light
or
first and then say the bracha. And
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat. Praised are you, Holy One of blessing, whose presence fills the world, who hallows us with mitzvot and inspires us to kindle Shabbat lights.
Amen. Shabbat, thank you. All right, we're going to stay on the same open page and we're going to go to page 25. If you look over to the right, Anim Zimirot. I seek pleasing melodies and weave songs, for my soul hungers after you. My soul desires to rest in the shadow of your hand. The medieval love poem to God, Anim Zimirot.
Ani Zimirot, Vashiri Neirot, Ki elecha nashiaro, nashikanda, b'tzel yadecha, ladat kol rashotecha. Amen, amen. Midei davrivecha, Melivi eldodecha, Yerei Ravnashi alecha, Kovnashi saro eladecha. Amen, amen. Sweet hymns and songs will I recite, sing of you by day and night, of you who are my soul's delight, of you who are my soul's delight. Amen. Amen.
And so it is, we enter into the secret mysteries of God, whom we stand in the presence of, but may not fully understand, and yet we glory in the blessings of that presence. We're going to continue on now on page 27 by welcoming not only the holy presence, but the presence of the angels. According to our tradition, on every Shabbat, every human soul receives two angels who escort them to Shabbat. And depending on how prepared and how receptive we are, those angels will bless us or disappoint us in the coming Shabbat. So we want to please them and make them feel good about hanging out with us by singing Shalom Aleichem, page 27.
Shalom
Aleichem, Malachei Hamarei,
Malachei Mi melech malachei hamlachim hakadosh baruch. Boechem hashalom, malachei hashalom, malachei elyon. Mi melech malachei hamlachim hakadosh baruch. Mina shalom, malachei hashalom, malachei elyon. Mi melech malachei hamlachim hakadosh baruch. Sefer hashalom, ma'el hashalom, malachei elyon. Mi melech malachei hamlachim hakadosh baruch.
Elacham delibi, Husana el natitalein. This is my heart's desire. In your mercy, O God, do not conceal yourself from me. Psalm 39, a paraphrase, together on the bottom of page 28. O God, you have searched me and know me well. You understand all my thoughts and every word upon my tongue. Your presence surrounds me. You touch me with your hand. Your presence exceeds my own perception. It is a wonder beyond understanding. We continue now with Chatzikash. Amen.
Yamadi Rakirute Bianlet Mahute. V'chayekonu yomecha, u'chayekol bet Yisrael. V'gala, v'gala, u'bizman kari, v'yemaru amen. Yehesh me'rava le'mara, Viet Ha'ar, Viet Raman, Viet Naseh, Viet Hadar, Viet Ale, Viet Allah, Shmei the Kudashah, Leila Min Kol Birchata V'Chirata,
Tush Bechata Nekemata Dami Ranyama Now let us all draw together as a community to acknowledge God's presence with the Baruch Hu. If you're able, please rise.
Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamorah.
Baruch Adonai Hamorah Le'olam Va'ed. Psalm 104. Bless the eternal, O my soul, O eternal my God, you are very great. You are clothed in glory and majesty, wrapped in light like a robe. You spread out the heavens like a tent cloth, and God sets the rafters in the high places in the waters. God makes the winds to be messengers, fiery flames to serve you. You make the deep cover the earth as a garment, and the waves to stand above mountains. You make springs gush forth in torrents, and they make their way between the hills. You water the mountains from your high places, and the earth is sated from the fruit of your work. The trees of the eternal drink their fill, the cedars of Lebanon, your own planting, where birds make their rests, and the stork has her home in the junipers. God made the moon to mark the seasons. The sun knows it's time to set. How manifold are your works, O Lord. In wisdom you have made them all. And may the glory of God endure forever. And may you rejoice in all your works. Bless the eternal, O my soul. Hallelujah. As I sing of one God, I rejoice in the wonders of this world. And I pray for that day when all people shall be as one.
Shema
Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem, Kivod Malchuto, Le'olam Va'ed. Please be seated as we continue to celebrate and ask ourselves to serve God in love. V'ahavta.
V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol varocha v'chol nashecha v'chol yodecha v'chayu ha'narim ha'ever asher anokim tzavcha hayom ha'levavecha v'shinata levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha v'vlechtecha b'derech v'shachbecha v'v'kumecha v'shartam la'ot lecha v'chayu l'chatachot v'neimecha v'chakam amezuzot b'techa v'sharech l'ma'an tisaru v'asitem v'tem v'roshim le'oheichem ani Adonai Eloheichem asher hotzeti lechem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem Elohim ani Adonai Eloheichem.
When a Jew speaks a word of prayer in love and awe, the power of that word gives birth to God's glory. And the angels call out to God, "Who is like unto you?" How great is even a single word of such a prayer. It causes all the angels to sing. All words join with the one who serves the eternal. This is the meaning of the Micha Mocha, that one who sings a song below can arouse so many songs on high. Now, we will get to this quote that we're singing tonight next week in our Torah portion, but the sages commanded us to sing it on a regular basis to remind us that this is the template, this is the paradigm, this is the dugma of what it is to be a Jew, to rejoice in our freedom. Micha Mocha, ladies and gentlemen. And in the evening, we interrupt our normal prayers to just offer a moment for personal hope, for peace as night falls. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Eternal God, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts. May we lie down in peace and rise up to find our hearts waiting to do your will. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, v'hamidenu malkeinu l'chaim, ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha, baruch atah Adonai hafores sukat shalom, aleinu v'al kol amo Yisrael, v'al Yerushalayim. And now we turn to Tefillah on page 34. Once again, if you're able, please rise. Adonai sepataytitam ufiyam itegirotecha. Adonai, open up my lips, let my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, El Hagadol, Hagibor V'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Chasdei Avot V'Imahot, U'Mevi Ulam Livnei B'neihem, L'man Shemo V'Yahava, Melech Ozer Mashiach Amen. Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham Ezra Sarah, Atah Gibor Ve'olam Adonai, Mechayeh Hakol Atah Shishiyah, Mechalkel Chaim Be'eretz, Mechayeh Hakol Ve'radam Rabim. So make no claim Ve'rofei Olim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayem Emunato, Lishanei Hava, Mikamocha Ba'al Gevurot, Umidom Elam, Melech Mimi, Unachayeh, Umatzniach Yeshua, B'nei Natal Chayot Ha'kol. Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayeh Ha'kol. Atah kadosh, Shimcha kadosh, Kadoshim b'kol yom yom ha'selah. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el ha'adon. Please be seated. And now we're going to continue our celebration of Shabbat, arguably the most holy of all Jewish days. We're going to sing Vishamru. The children of Israel shall keep the Shabbat, observing the Shabbat in every generation as an eternal covenant. For it is a sign forever between me and the children of Israel. And we are on page 36, the top of the page. In 6 days, Adonai God made heaven and earth. And on the seventh day, God rested and was refreshed.
Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat, לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם. בנינו בית בני ישראל, בני ישראל, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני, עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם.
We offer a prayer for acceptance in the hopes that all that we strive for will find favor in God's eyes. We reach for you, O God, from our quiet places. May we stand still for a brief moment, listen to the rain, stand still for a brief moment, and watch the play of sunlight and shadow on the leaves. For a brief moment, listen to the world. We need a quiet space to test the balance of our days, the weight of our own needs against the heaviness of the world's demands. The balance is precarious. Study us with faith. Quiet places and stillness where we will hear our own best impulses speak. Quiet places and stillness where we will reach out to each other, where we will find strength in silence. And with that strength, we will turn once again to your service. Thanksgiving. There are times, God, when I feel alone, and yet I know in my heart that I am never truly alone. You are always there, waiting for me to speak to you of my desires, my fears, hopes, and dreams. And yet, how seldom do I reach out to you to voice my gratitude for all that is beautiful in my life, for all the gifts of my life. Love, family, and friendship have come from you, but the greatest gift of all is your very presence, which time and again has given me strength, hope, and courage. So in the midst of doubt and confusion, I need to know that you are beside me, not only in the prayer book, but in the depths of my being, my friend, my strength, my God. And we're going to conclude with a prayer for Shalom Rav, peace that overflows the edges of our lives. Shalom Rav on page 38, and we're going to follow that with just a few moments of silence for reflection and prayer.
Shalom Rav Yisrael עמך תשים לעולם. שלום רב ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. כי אתה הוא מלך גדול, לך השלום. כי אתה הוא מלך גדול, לך השלום. שלום רב ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. שלום רב ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. שטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל. בכל עת ובהושע בשלומך. שלום רב ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. שלום רב ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם. יהיו לרצון אמרתי בהגון ליבי לפניך, אדוני סורי, סורי וגואלי, Adonai Suri Elohai. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable to you, be acceptable to you. Oh God, my rock and my Redeemer, oh God, my rock and my Redeemer.
So, our Torah portion this week is Bo, which is right in the smack in the middle of the various plagues that are hammering the Egyptian people and Pharaoh and his regime, and it's taking a toll, but Pharaoh is resisting, and the tension is rising and the drama is accelerating, and it seems that we don't know how everything's going to go one way or another. Is it going to resolve itself? Is it the crisis going to continue? And then bam! Right around chapter 12, God stops the action and decides to talk to us about how to observe a holiday that hasn't even yet occurred. He says, once I have delivered you out of Egypt, I want you to do this following thing for me, and explains how to observe the holiday of Passover. So it's a little bit of a mental temporal fugue going on there where, you know, something that hasn't even happened yet, it's already, we're start remembering it. And how weird is that, right? And it won't be until next week that we pick up with the plague. So I thought I would do something a little like that, not necessarily anticipating exactly what's going to happen in the future, because I'm not God and I don't know. But instead, my temporal fugue is going to go back to 2021. We're going to stop with our current plague. We're going to forget about it for the moment, and we're going to talk about what's been passed. See, at the start of 2021, I personally was thinking that it was a much more hopeful situation and news over time would get better. And in some cases over 2021, it has gotten better. But 2021 was also in a lot of ways a series of sequels to 2020. And difficult events continued to carry over. COVID-19 simply mutated. Whatever doesn't kill you turns into something else and tries again. A difficult election in 2020 was followed by a violent insurrection against the results of that election. And for Jews, the trend of more anti-Semitic incidents, individually small, but cumulatively troubling, continued to rise. While the Abraham Accords, signed in 2020, continued to bear fruit and bring good news to the Jewish people. So it's been a mixed bag. But there were also a few truly novel developments, some of which were quite positive, and I think we need to be aware of them if we aren't already. One of the important realities we Jews in America, first of all, now need to internalize is that we are not, as we have been since World War II, the biggest and most key Jewish community on the globe. What happens in Israel matters more and more, as much, if not more, to the overall well-being of the Jewish people and the future of our faith as what happens here. So there have been developments here, there have been developments in Israel. I'd like to share a few with you. We'll start with a downer that I think actually signifies in the long-term progress. And this has played out both here in America and in Israel. Like organizations and institutions and groups worldwide, Jews have had an ongoing problem with sexual harassment and sexual exploitation that happens in hierarchical situations. And we've been, like every other people, reluctant to address it. But things are changing. In 2021, here in America, our own reform movement has engaged in a very dramatic reckoning with past sexual and gender issues. This year has seen two remarkable reports coming out of the reform movement, independent investigations by our seminary and our reform rabbinate looking into issues from the past. At Hebrew Union College, regarding our seminary, 3 of our 4 campuses have been found to have past issues with harassment and even some predation that has gone unaddressed for some time until now. And now it's out in the open. The investigation independently conducted by the law firm of Morgan Lewis has uncovered a list of offenses and offenders and frankly cataloged all of these issues. At the same time, our rabbinic organization, the Central Conference of American Rabbis, has commissioned an independent, comprehensive review of our ethics policy to deal with how rabbinic offenders can sometimes evade or just get a slap on the wrist when they are held to account. I'm particularly proud of the fact that my classmate, Rabbi Mary Zamor, who heads the Women's Rabbinic Network, has been the spearhead of getting this review done. And now, all we have to do is implement all of its recommendations. In Israel, too, there has been something of a sea change. After years of legal and political wrangling, Israel finally extradited a serial child molester to face justice in Australia. Perhaps finally exercising the worn out stereotype that Jews will not get justice in Gentile and foreign courts. At last, we're acknowledging that we are responsible internationally. More important, a serial predator in a position of tremendous influence in the Orthodox community, was finally brought down. A fall that tragically ended in his suicide. But it's good news in the sense that the credit must be given to a very special Beit Din, or established rabbinic court, that's been convened to pursue sexual predators in the Orthodox world, in its schools, in its communities, and its places of power. This is like nothing that's ever happened before. And I think we should rejoice in that. In the field of politics, really all eyes have been on Israel. There's been a new government in Jerusalem. Benjamin Netanyahu, already a defendant in a corruption trial, has been ousted after almost 15 years as Israel's prime minister. 15 years, corruption tends to set in, and we know that, and finally something has been done. We've had 4 indecisive elections over the past 2 years, but Israeli leaders from 2 different ends of the political spectrum, Naftali Bennett and Yair Lapid, came together to oust Netanyahu and assembled a broad-based coalition that has enabled Bennett to replace Netanyahu as prime minister. This new coalition government is unprecedented in the history of Israel, a seemingly precarious and improbable collection of political actors. It has held together for the last 6 months and includes a wide spectrum of parties from far right to far left. Not only is it pushing forward with multiple long-needed reforms, giving Israel its first actual budget in 3 years, but it's continued outreach to the Arab world, and it is notable for 3 distinct firsts that have never happened before. For the first time, an Arab political party, the party known as Ram, has been included in the governing coalition, resulting in a much needed attention being given to the Arab sector in Israel. 2, this is the first government without an Orthodox religious party in the governing coalition, resulting in a series of much needed reforms to the sclerotic and sometimes corrupt operation of the chief rabbinate. Reforms in kosher law and how conversions are conducted and relations with non-Orthodox branches of Judaism are all on the table and all being tried out in new legal ways. And 3, not only is it a first for the Arab party in the government, it is notable for the first time, a reform rabbi, a guy named Gil Nativ, has been elected to be part of the governing coalition. There have been a lot of rabbis in Israel's government of the past, but this is the first time that the reform movement has representation and a voice in the government. Well, it's not all good. In a continuation of a conflict that goes back to 2006, in May, there was a week and a half of hostilities between the Gaza-based Hamas terrorist group and Israel, as well as conflicting Arab-Jewish unrest in several Israeli cities. Hamas, during that time, launched more than 4,000 rockets from Gaza towards Jewish state, including Tel Aviv and Jerusalem for the first time. Israel responded to the attacks with a strong military action, defended its borders. The Israelis are so used to this now, they call it mowing the grass, which is a kind of disturbing but accurate description for the process of keeping things under control. Now, here in America, I want to recognize what synagogues have been doing, including our synagogue. Synagogues have adapted to COVID-19 with considerable innovation. Now, you know, synagogues are not famous for being the most cutting edge communities, but we've done a lot. Faced with the continuing global pandemic, synagogues around the world have made significant adjustments for new creative forms of worship, study, and other activities that have traditionally always been in-person events. Now we have what people are calling sofa synagogues, electronically linked, geographically separated people via the internet are now increasingly part of our community. Many of these solutions are likely to be fixtures for Jewish life, even when, and it will be when, the virus is last subdued. And then, going back to Israel, The Women of the Wall have had something of a breakthrough. What is the Women of the Wall? It's an Israeli organization that has pressed for the rights of women to worship publicly at Judaism's most holy site, the Kotel, the Western Wall, a remnant of the ancient temple in Jerusalem. Orthodox Jewish authorities who have had control over the wall have been adamantly forbidding public prayers by women at the sacred site that would involve anything that might have traditionally be associated with men, such as reading from the Torah. But after several significant court victories and a change in the Israeli government, the Women of the Wall now seem to have finally turned the tide. And the Israeli police at the wall are now actually protecting women. A group of 300 women and men gathered recently to pray, and the police protected them against intense harassment from hundreds, if not thousands, of young Orthodox men. And finally, my number one thing that we all need to know from 2021, and most awesome and noteworthy of all, is we are number one. Or less, we men are number one. Because a Jew, and a 50-year-old Jew at that, Paul Rudd, was selected by People magazine as the sexiest man alive. Yes, I think this is a product of both the global Jewish conspiracy and Paul Rudd's personal pact with Satan. But this genial, funny, and charming person, this Canadian Jew, Paul Rudd, rose to the top of the heap of sexy guys. Many have commented on how Rudd seems to have not aged at all in the quarter century since his first appearance in the movie Clueless. No doubt somewhere there is a shriveling portrait of him, molded out of chopped liver, that is slowly withering in the back of his refrigerator. But I think it's enough for us Jewish men everywhere to bask in this glorious achievement that has arrived in 2021. So yay for us. Now, I do want to conclude, as many of these kinds of reviews do, with some observations about a few notable Jews who have passed away in 2021. It is, of course, the American custom to celebrate people's birthdays, but it is the Jewish custom to honor people and celebrate their lives at their death. So we want to call attention to some of these figures of very different background, very different contributions who died this year. I'm going to begin with Sheldon Adelson. Sheldon Adelson is a successful casino operator, but he's also been an enormous philanthropist who has contributed much to the Jewish world as he has risen in his influence and his wealth. We also want to remember someone completely different, Ed Asner. Ed Asner, actor and activist in Hollywood, beloved character actor, finally passed away. I want to call attention about two rabbis, one Orthodox, one Reform. Canada lost its most influential rabbi this year, Rabbi Reuven Bolka. Rabbi Bolka, the author of a dozen books and in many ways the voice of Canadian Jews, passed away, but also Rabbi Richard Hirsch, Reform rabbi. At the beginning of his career, he was involved in the civil rights movement here in America, but in the 70s, he got the call to make Aliyah to Israel. And he not only became a leading rabbi for the embryonic reform movement in Israel, but then he went on to become the president of the World Union for Progressive Judaism, and was a man that I knew in my time in Jerusalem, and was a tremendously influential rabbi. We also want to think of, many of you probably don't know this name, Norton Chester, but some of you do if you read the book, The Phantom Toll Booth. Chester was actually an architect, but he wrote this, one of the most beloved children's books, and he's passed away. On the other hand, most of you have heard of Larry King. He also died. On the political level, we want to think about Senator Carl Levin. We also want to think of a less familiar figure, Idle Noodle. If you were someone involved in the campaign for Soviet jewelry in the 70s and 80s, she was one of the leading refuseniks, one of those people who stood up to Soviet power in demanding her right and the right of Jews to emigrate from an oppressive Soviet regime. We also want to honor Joan Micklin Silver, again, someone you may not know, but she made two of my favorite movies. Hester Street, a black and white movie about Jewish immigrants in the Lower East Side, and Crossing Delancey Street, which was a charming rom-com about two Jews, something unheard of in Hollywood movies, two Jews falling in love and getting married. Then we lost the actor George Segal, as well as the composer, Stephen Sondheim, and finally, one of my favorite actresses, comedic actresses and voice artists, Jessica Walter. So there are many other important and famous Jews who died in the past year, but I wanted to draw attention to those. So, as always, every year, it's a mixed bag. Every year, there are good things and bad things to report, but I just want you to know the state of the Jewish people is strong. And as we go into 2022, we're doing all right, despite some of the things that worry us and frighten us and concern us. And I hope that 2022 proves to be a much better year than 2021 or 2020 or some of the aspects of 2019. We'll get there. I believe it. You know, at a certain point, it can't get worse. Kenahora. All right. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for our announcements. And our officer tonight is, there he is. Thank you, Samson, for taking this on. So.
Good Shabbos.
Shabbat Shalom.
Announcements. Religious school. We do have religious school this weekend after 3 weeks off for winter break. Be sure to join in on the Tu B'Shvat festivities. However, I think we have religious school and then we don't have it again, right? Yeah. So we have religious school this week, but not the next week. Sisterhood White Elephant Book Exchange. Sisterhood members don't miss out on the first event of the year on January 11th at 6:30 p.m. They will be doing a White Elephant Book Exchange. Please bring a book that is wrapped to the event that will be given to another member. The book can be your favorite book, a new book, a used book, a Jewish book, a book you've never read, really any book. We have been doing the White Elephant Book Exchange for years. It is a lot of fun and a chance to learn about new books. We would love to see everyone and to catch up on how everyone's holidays work. The Sisterhood board will be providing snacks. We hope you can make it. RSVP to Carly Wisniewski. From Flower Mound to Holy Ground, an interfaith exploration into the land of Israel. This series is an investigation in the history, places, and meaning of the land of Israel from an interfaith perspective. Beginning with an introduction to how Jews and Christians can engage in religious study together, we will examine the history of the Holy Land and key locations within it, unpacking their spiritual significance for both faiths. Join us in a journey of greater understanding. This class is meant to reflect our itinerary for a planned interfaith pilgrimage in May of 2023, but participation is not limited to those planning to travel with us. Classes will alternate weekly between CKA on Trinity Presbyterian Church and Intrepid Venture of 0.9 miles. 7 sessions, January 12th to February 23rd, 2022, from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Dinner provided for $6. The first session is at Trinity Presbyterian Church. These classes are open to congregants and their families only. Please register using the included link. There is no cost other than the $42 per person for food if desired. Please use the link under the education menu and the adult education section on the website to register. As always, you can find all the specific details for these announcements and anything else you might need on the congregation website. Is this week? Yes. We at Congregation Kol Ami like to take a moment to acknowledge anyone who might be in need of any sort of healing from Misha Barak. Is there anyone in here that has a name to add to Misha Barak?
Sue Berger, Tom Holiday, Harry Jefferson, and Sheldon Jackson.
Thank you.
Larry Cohen.
Thank you. May the one who blessed our ancestors also bless Harry Anthony, Joyce Bloom, Natalie Bovino, Sandy Cook, Mark Davis, Jeanette Dubrow, Michelle Griffith, Jody Hoffman, Carol Jones, Molly Kalig, Deb Kaufman, Clayton Kirkwood, Lauren Koenig, Alex Koenig, Gianna LaMonica, Deb Ledden, Phyllis Lorley, Shirley Lunsford, Jack Nygren, Paul Redwood Jr., Sandy Garber Rubin, Adrian Sandler, Danny Santos, Myra Schusler, Dale Seaver, Zachary Thompson, Happy Waterman, and Pearl Williams. Mishepera Havotenu Mekor Habracha Limotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishepera imotenu mekor habracha lehavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
All right. Now, we are going to turn to page 82. And I thought I would invite up two individuals to open the ark with me. So I'm going to invite up Casey Flansbaum and Poloni Flansbaum. Come on up, two of you.
1.75.
Okay.
Thelonious?
Poloni is the Hebrew word for John Doe.
I see.
All right, please rise, everyone. now we recall with love and gratitude the names of all the people that we have lost, whether it be recently, as well as those whose anniversaries of death occur this week. As we remember them, we meditate upon the meaning of love and of loss, of life and of death. I begin by asking, is there anyone here who has lost a loved one in the past week? If so, please share the name with us for Shiva. How about someone who you've lost in the last month? We observe Shloshim. Anybody? All right. And for this week, yard sites, anniversaries of death, we recall these people. Melton E. Cohen, Molly Elfont, Noah Ewing, Leona Harris, Carl Jacobs Gladfelter, forgive me. Elsie Shelton Jaffe, Rosalind Leva, Jack Levine, Maurice Rosen, Eva Rubin, Armando Sandoval, and Ann Singer. Is there, what's that? Thank you. And is there anyone else who has a yard site this week? All right, we want to honor these names and we want to show our caring for the people who mourn for them by rising together, if able, to recite Kaddish on page 85. Page 85. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah ve'alma divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayechon v'yomechon uv'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael v'galal u'izman kari v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach ve'olam u'lamei amaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei d'kudsha b'rihu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbachata v'nechemata damiran ve'elma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba mim shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Osei shalom b'mrona. Uyase shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. May the source of peace and peace to all who mourn, and comfort all the bereaved among us. And let us say. So as we close out, we want to thank Jacob for taking on this task, as well as having Bob's steady guiding hand and helping him. They're hidden away, but I'm staring at the space where they would be. I also want to thank Dr. Nikki for providing our musical leadership. Just a little earlier, Richard and I were just showing our age by talking about all the different 60s bands we could recall. And it just seemed to me, going all the way back, that maybe we should do something with the turning of time from Ecclesiastes, the famous passage, there's a season for everything, which of course became a song, a pop song for the Byrds called Turn, Turn, Turn. So hopefully most of you, if not all of you, got the sheet for singing this classic, and you will join me in celebrating the turning of time.
Okay, and there are copies of this on the.
Back outside if you need to run out and get.
To everything, turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to reap, a time to kill, a time to heal, a time to laugh, a time to weep. To everything, turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to build up, a time to break down, a time to dance, a time to
and a time to every purpose under heaven.
A time of love, a time of hate, a time of war, a time for peace,
A
a
time
time you may embrace, a time to refrain from embracing. To everything,
turn, turn, turn.
there is a season,
turn, turn, turn. And a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to gain, a time to lose,
a time to rend,
a time to sow,
a time for love, a time for hate, a time for peace. I swear it's not too late. To everything,
turn, turn, turn.
there is a season, turn, turn,
turn. And a time to every purpose under heaven. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. I hope you'll stick around and have a little oneg with us and do a little bit of fellowship. You don't have to wear your mask when you're eating. Just come on into the social hall. And I picked up some new snazzy snacks. So you should see our new hostess things, including strawberry doohickeys. It'll be great.